We're talking about the cold, and it is cold. It's very cold outside. It's so cold that that's not a joke. I mean, you go outside, and I did. I went out there yesterday. I'm not the smartest, not the shiniest apple on the tree. So when I went out there in my shorts and T-shirt, it was like I really thought to myself, man, you would not last like 10 minutes out in this cold. That's how cold it is, which is why we want to talk to Dr. Fahmi Farah. She is the medical expert, board-certified invasive cardiologist based here in Texas. We spoke, I think, a couple of weeks ago, Doctor, and I think at that point it was allergies. And I don't think we don't have to worry about allergies right now, do we?
No, I think the cold is the more pressing issue right now.
Exactly. It's the cold has killed any sort of pollen that's in the air. So people need to know and understand hypothermia and frostbite. Although when you walk outside and it's this cold, I mean, you kind of naturally know that this is not it's not good to sit outside on the park bench while it's this cold and read the newspaper or whatever, right? Or does this sneak up on people?
You're absolutely correct. This is not the weather to be outside unless you absolutely have to be. So minimizing exposure is a good idea for things like, as you already mentioned, frostbite and particularly hypothermia. Hypothermia could be quite dangerous, and it doesn't take very long to get that, actually, especially for those who are older and children. They're more susceptible to it.
What is the difference between frostbite and hypothermia?
So frostbite, it involves like a particular part of your body, like something that's exposed to the cold for long enough, like, for example, say your finger, then, it cuts off circulation to that part of the body. And if it's not removed in a timely manner, you can actually end up losing that part of the body because of lack of circulation. So it is pretty serious. Whereas hypothermia, it's more of a systemic thing. Hypothermia means that your core body temperature drops below 95 degrees. And, if you have hypothermia for a long enough time, it's dangerous because it can actually affect all your internal organs. It can shut off your internal organ system and can be fatal.
I was actually watching an old episode of Unsolved Mysteries the other day on Amazon, and they were doing a segment on escaping from Alcatraz, and a swimmer who was out there in his Speedo jumps into the water. He's going to try to swim from Alcatraz Island to the mainland, which is, I guess, I don't know, quarter of a mile, something like that. And the temperature in the water, it was something crazy. It was in the 50s. And they said that, there was a real danger of him, and this obviously happened years and years ago. But I'm thinking, man, hypothermia sneaks up on you fast in the water, but it also can sneak up on you pretty quickly in just the air in these conditions, and especially if the wind is blowing out there, and you start showing some weird signs of having hypothermia, like slurring your speech, things like that, right?
That is correct. Yes, it doesn't have to. I mean, that was one of the Alcatraz. That's really funny, as I've watched that movie too. But that's an extreme case. I would not advise that for anybody to do. You're absolutely
Right.
correct. It doesn't take that long for it to sneak up on you.
And so if you see somebody outside in weather like this, I find it pretty normal to step outside and go, whoa, wait a second, it's too cold out here, I'm going back inside. But elderly people, I guess, could wander out, and, you got to keep, I hate to say you got to keep an eye on them, but you kind of do, and kids.
Oh, absolutely. Elderly folks who have dementia, you are right. That is a risk. And that could be extremely dangerous if they get lost in this kind of weather. And children as well, they don't have very high reserve in their bodies, and they can quickly get into trouble, and hypothermia can be deadly. What's
the fix? What do you do if somebody is showing signs of hypothermia? I mean, you don't, like with a fever, you're supposed to put them in an ice bath. I'm assuming we don't put people who have hypothermia in an ice bath.
No, you do the exact opposite.
Okay. All right. I hate ice baths.
Yes. So the first thing would be to remove that person from the cold area and, try to cover them up, warm them up, and call for help. Hypothermia is something that should be checked out in the emergency department, and so they should be taken to the ER.
What are the first internal organs that start to show signs of damage when it comes to hypothermia?
It could be any one of the organs. Your kidneys are pretty susceptible to it, but your heart, that's the main thing. And heart is very susceptible to hypothermia. It actually slows down significantly, and it can put people into cardiac arrest.
Wow. Which does not sound like fun. And then going back to the frostbite thing, what does frostbite initially? I mean, I've seen pictures before of people who've had severe frostbite, who've their fingers are black or their toes are black, but it doesn't start out that way, right?
It does not. Yes, that's when it turns black. That's called necrosis. That's when basically that tissue has died from the lack of circulation. But it starts off usually with like a little bit of skin discoloration, typically reddish at the beginning, and people also feel pain. It's like painful when you first start to get frostbite, but then as it progresses, you'll actually lose sensation, and it starts to become bluish, purplish, and that's when you have to worry, because that means like your circulation's really cut off. And as I said, if it's not taken care of in a speedy manner, and then you could really lose that tissue, and it become necrosis with purple and black.
Yuck. Ugh. And again, when people look like they might have frostbite, you don't want to dunk their appendage into hot water. It should be just warm water.
That is correct. Yes, you don't want to go from one extreme to the another. It should be just lukewarm water, and call for help.
All right, cool. I sure do appreciate your knowledge on all of this. Where do people go to find out more about you and get in touch with you?
They can find me at www.drfahmifarah.com, and also Instagram and Twitter at Fahmi J. Farah.
And you were one of the 2020 top doctors in Fort Worth Magazine, huh?
Yes, 2020 and 2021.
Kind of a big deal. Good for you. Good for you. Well, we certainly do appreciate your expertise. Thank you. And I hope I don't have to see you anytime soon, because obviously that would mean there was something wrong with me, and I don't like that. Plus, I'm allergic to doctors. So,
oh, my goodness.
Appreciate your time. Stay warm this afternoon.
Thank you. You as well. It was great being on your show.
Absolutely.